Okay, I will call this meeting of the Pawtucket School Committee to order at 6 o'clock. Ms. Barber, will you please take a roll call?
Ms. Bonolo, Mr. Charbonneau,
Here.
Ms. Grant,
Here. Mr.
Knight,
Here.
Mr. Larby, Mr. Marino,
Here.
Ms. Dooley.
Here, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First on our agenda is special reports of student representatives. Do we have a representative here from Charles E. Shea High School?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Glenara Santos, and I'm here to tell you our Shea happenings. Our class officers continue to discuss Shea events. Key Club, led by Mrs. Scarpelli, has been very busy helping our community. During the last month, they have made holiday cards for those who are shut in, made blankets, and have collected non-perishable items for the less fortunate. Content and credit recovery runs Monday through Thursday. We had our first dance in a while, the Shea Homecoming Dance. It was a huge success. 250 students attended and danced the night away. Our guidance team continues to have area colleges and universities for our upperclassmen during advisory. We ended our football season at the annual Thanksgiving game, in which we soundly defeated Tolman. Go Raiders! Winter sports have begun, and most recently, our boys basketball team took first place in the Lynch Donaldson tournament at the Boys and Girls Club. The Shea Student Council worked on the thank you notes and are moving forward with ideas from the student government meeting. Some of our seniors attended the financial aid workshop sponsored by Senator Jack Reed on November 22nd at CCRI, and on December 9th, the College Planning Center was at Shea to help our seniors complete their applications. Our robotics team, led by Mrs. Jones, did a great job at North Kingston Holiday Robotics Scrimmage. A representative from the Boys and Girls Club came to Shea and presented their workforce development program. Mesh Studios is back tomorrow for Retake Picture Day. Our yearbook committee is back on. And in closing, on behalf of the Shea students and staff, I would like to wish you all happy holidays. Thank you so much.
Next up, we have a representative from William E. Tolman High School.
Hello, everyone. My name is Maya Bishop. I am a senior at Tolman. Congratulations to the following Tolman student athletes who are honored as Key Spirit Award winners for the fall sports season. Melanie Castillo for girls volleyball, Miguel Mata for boys soccer, Giovanni Els for boys cross country, Emily Brown for girls cross country, Sarah Souza for girls tennis, Antonio Contreras for football, Jayla Bossier for girls soccer, and Naomi Barboza for cheerleading. Parent-teacher conferences were held on Thursday evening, November 17th. The conferences were very well attended by our Tolman parents and guardians. Murray Studios conducted a makeup day on Tuesday, December 6th to photograph any student who missed the original picture date or those who wish to have a second picture taken. The Brown University students who began a program in October to help our sophomore and junior students prepare for the PSAT and SAT examinations are now offering homework club to all students on Wednesday afternoons. Credit and content recovery programs began last Monday, November 28th. The content recovery program is designed to provide an intervention for students currently struggling with a core subject class. The credit recovery program is designed to help students earn credits for courses that they previously did not pass. The Tolman JROTC Color Guard will be presenting tomorrow morning at the Wreaths Across Country American ceremony to be held at Goff Middle School. Thank you and have a good night, everyone.
And we have a representative from Jacqueline M. Walsh School for Performing and Visual Arts.
Hi, my name is Princess Apia, and I am a senior video and film major at the Jacqueline M. Walsh School for the Arts. Our mock trial team took their second win of the season against Mount St. Charles. They have one more regular trial in January, and they are looking forward to playoffs. Our dance students attended RI's Ballet's Coppelia, and they are looking forward to seeing the Nutcracker next week. Our application deadline was Friday, and we are excited for audition week, which will be the second week in January. On Sunday night, students from our music program braved the cold and performed at Winter Wonderland in Slater Park. Today and tomorrow, student and teacher representatives are participating in the JA Inspire exhibit at the Convention Center. We are happy to be back in person for this event for the first time since the pandemic. Tuesday night, December 20th, is our winter culmination featuring all 5 majors. This event is free and open to the public. The doors open at 6 p.m. and the show is at 6:30 p.m. Thank you and happy holidays.
Next on our agenda is public participation. We have 4 people signed up. The first is Mr. Ron Beaupre.
All members of our school community deserve to go to work and school and feel safe. School staff should never feel their lives are in jeopardy simply by showing up at work. No one should live it with the fear that sending their child to school or to an after-school program may be placing them in harm's way. To ensure that our schools remain safe, it is important that school district policies and procedures assist those who are responsible for the health and safety of students and staff while they are at school, on school grounds, on their way to or from school, and involved in school-sponsored activities. Good evening. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to speak. My name is Ron Beaupre. I am a 4th grade teacher at Agnes Little Elementary School. I am the president of the Pawtucket Teachers Alliance, proudly representing the nearly 750 teachers, educational support staff, and related service providers serving the students in Pawtucket's public schools. I rise this evening to illustrate the fear and concern of Pawtucket Teachers Alliance members throughout the Pawtucket School Department, most pressingly at Shea High School. On November 17th, as you are all aware, during what was characterized as a drug bust at Shea High School, a handgun was discovered in a student's locker at the close of the school day. Principal Dr. Jacqueline Ash and her staff immediately notified authorities. Later that evening, in her daily update memo, Dr. Ash briefly addressed the incident and invited members of the faculty to a voluntary meeting the next morning where details of the incident were shared. To this day, no communication or acknowledgement from the central office or the superintendent of schools was provided to the faculty and staff regarding this incident. Less than 1 week later, on Tuesday, November 22nd, following the Tolman-Shea Thanksgiving football game, an event that should have unified us as a community, a violent brawl broke out between students from Shea and students allegedly from Davies. Dr. Ash launched an investigation and identified all the Shea High School students who instigated and violently participated in the fight and initiated disciplinary procedures, including a recommendation for suspension. Dr. Ash's efforts were met with opposition from the superintendent of schools, ultimately overriding the decision to suspend, stating that suspension was not appropriate as the incident occurred after school hours. Again, no communication regarding the brawl was issued from the central office, nor the superintendent of schools. Many teachers entered school the following Monday morning, unaware that the incident had even happened. Both incidents illustrate the great need for increased school safety measures to be implemented and the need for strict enforcement of Pawtucket School Department policies. Pawtucket School Committee Policy JIC, titled Student Conduct Policy, reads, and I quote, "The school committee recognizes that acceptable behavior is essential for the development of responsible and self-disciplined citizens and for the provision of an effective school program. All professional staff members have a responsibility for consistency in establishing and maintaining an appropriate behavioral atmosphere. Every student is under the direction and control of the teachers and/or principal in the school during the following periods of time: during school hours of a designated school day, while on school premises during the school day, while on any school activities, while being transported on a school bus paid for and/or supported by the Pawtucket School Department funds to and from school at the time the child entered the school bus at the designated route pickup point and or left the school bus at the designated route drop-off point, end quote. Additionally, policy JICI, titled Zero Tolerance for Weapons and Violence, states, quote, any student found to be in possession of a weapon or involved in an aggravated assault will immediately be suspended in accordance with the applicable due process provisions. During this suspension, the school district will take the necessary steps in determining any additional action, which may include long-term suspension. Decisions regarding the specific length of a student's suspension will be made by each school committee or appropriate authority. Any student suspended from school cannot participate in school functions or be on school premises, end quote. Finally, policy JKD, titled Due Process Regulations for Governing Disciplinary Exclusions of Students from School, states, quote, the principal and or assistant principal are authorized to suspend a student for up to 5 days or less. The superintendent of schools or an assistant superintendent is authorized to suspend a student for up to an additional 5 days. This policy also includes the student suspension policy, which states, quote, the administration may remove a student from school for 1, willful conduct which materially and substantially disrupts the right of others to an education. 2, willful conduct which endangers students, the school staff, or the property of the school, end quote. It is clear from the description of these two incidents, along with the countless recurring incidents of fighting and violent behavior at Shea and Tolman high schools. Example, Instagram page, Tolman fights from last school year, 10 fights in 3 days, 1 including the use of brass knuckles. As well as in our 3 middle schools, including student carrying a taser or stun weapon at Goff Middle School last week, allegations of 3 sexual assaults, 1 in each of the 3 middle schools, that the Pawtucket School Department must immediately provide increased safety measures and strict adherence to the policies set forth by this body. Attached to this testimony, which will be provided to the clerk for dissemination to the members of the committee, is a petition signed by Alliance members from all 6 of our secondary schools, Shea, Tolman, Walsh, Goff, Jenks, and Slater, requesting that the Pawtucket School Department and the Pawtucket School Committee take immediate action to ensure that our schools are safe and orderly, providing an environment conducive to teaching and learning, including but not limited to the establishment of school-based safe and orderly schools committees empowered to make and enforce policies and procedures to promote a safe and orderly learning environment. The establishment of a true alternative learning program that will address the social, emotional, and behavioral needs, health needs of students struggling to succeed in the traditional setting. An increase in the number of social emotional support professionals to support students experiencing crisis. A feasibility study to explore increasing safety measures, such as the installation of additional high visibility security cameras, metal detectors, or other surveillance equipment to ensure that violent behaviors are noticed in real time and response time is reduced, and to ensure that weapons do not enter our school buildings. And stand ready and willing to work in partnership with the Pawtucket School Committee, the Pawtucket School Department Administration, the students and families we serve, and any other agency or partner deemed necessary to implement policies and procedures that will ensure our students and our staff attend safe and orderly schools where our students can exceed their highest potential. Thank you for your time.
Next on the agenda is Michael Cookson.
Hi, I'm going to actually defer my comments at this time. I'm all set. Thank you.
Next is Paul Jennings.
I also yield back my time. Thank you.
Rodriguez?
Pawtucket is an amazing city with a rich history and cultural heritage. I feel so lucky to be a teacher here. The birthplace of the Industrial Revolution, Pawtucket was instrumental in creating the America we know and love today, comprised of hardworking, down-to-earth residents committed to creating a community for themselves and for their families. Throughout the last century, Tolman and Shea High School have been the bedrocks of our city and have been pillars on which our community stands. Many of our faculty and staff are former Tolman and Shea graduates, committed to giving back to the city that raised them. Working together to help the next generation achieve its goals, united but divided, each with their own cultures and traditions. Like all families, we as a community have had our divides and our struggles. It's important to acknowledge this, to acknowledge the conflict between us and within our city. Issues in the city that have periodically spilled into our schools as violence, a trend we cannot allow to continue. In November, the residents of Pawtucket made the monumentous decision to fund a unified modern high school, something long overdue, which our students deserve. But change can bring challenges. We have to acknowledge and anticipate these challenges that will come from unifying the city. Careful planning will ensure that we are prepared for any and all issues that will undoubtedly arise from combining these two historic institutions. Burying our heads in the sand will serve no purpose but to exacerbate these problems. We have to be realistic and forward-thinking and put time and effort into planning in order to have a safe and orderly transition to our new modern high school. As teachers, we want our students to have the best learning environment possible, and that's why I urge this committee to support our schools and create a committee focused on providing our students with safe and orderly schools. The reality is our students are amazing. They are wonderful people that deserve our focus and attention. The issue is the lack of resources, options, and policies for students in situations we just can't adequately support. Thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda is recognition. We had this last week, but we will have it again because we need to recognize a member, Mr. Knight, who I have truly enjoyed working with for the past 8 years that I've served in this committee, who has given so much to this city of his time, of his energy, and of his effort. And it is because he truly cares about his city, the students in this city, the teachers in this city, and I was honored to serve with you, Mr. Knight. There is a plaque for you in sincere appreciation for your dedication and outstanding service to the Pawtucket School Department and children of the community. Next on our agenda is approval of previous meeting minutes. Been a motion by Ms. Vanola, seconded by Ms. Grant Larby. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion carries 7-0. Next on our agenda is new business discussion action items. ESER 3 ADA bathrooms. Review, discuss, and act on schematic design submission to RIDE School Building Authority. Who's taking this item? Oh, sorry. Hi. Oh, this is coming from the facilities. I'm sorry, Mr. Charbonneau.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It is actually not coming from facilities. It was determined best course of action was to bring straight to the full school committee due to the time sensitivity of this.
Good evening. I apologize. My coworker Chris Spiegel is out this week with COVID, so I'm going to be taking over for him. He has infilled me quite a bit on this project, so I should be able to answer all of your questions. There is a chance that there's a question I may not be able to answer, and I'll be able to report back to you. So I'm here to report on the 4 separate ADA American Disabilities Act bathrooms, accessible bathrooms that we're looking to put into for the schools. So the first one that we are here to explain is in Pullman. So there is an OTPC room in Pullman that has more than enough space in it right now, and they're looking to carve out space for an ADA bathroom. I should note that in each of these 4 bathrooms, they will come with ADA accessible toilet, changing table, storage underneath as well as a cupboard with some storage to allow for full accessibility and with the storage inside of them. They're all based off of the design we have here at Jenks, so it'll have that same changing table this year. So within this one, we have chosen space just adjacent to the girls' restroom in the OTP space. And if you have questions on individual ones, I'm happy to take them, but I was going to run through all four of them and then go back to them, if that's all right. The second ADA accessible bathroom that we are looking to construct is in Curtis. We are going to be constructing it just outside of the boys and girls restroom. Again, same scenario where we'll have a changing station, sink, bathroom with curtains, accessible handrails, and then new millwork as well. This one we built with a possible alternate for a storage room adjacent to it on the opposite side, so that if there is additional funding and it comes in a little bit low, we'll have the opportunity to build some symmetry.
Can you clarify if this is the one that's in the preschool wing? It is, okay, thank you.
My question is where the lift is. The markings where it says it would reach the table, it's just on the edge of the table. Is that a sufficient enough swing to move a child?
Yeah, so I know it's really difficult to see. There's a dashed line right here that is a full 5-foot circle diameter. And that's typical what you need for wheelchair accessibility to be able to do the 3-point turns they need. So you have about 5 feet from the edge of the table to the edge of the center.
Right, but not the wheelchair accessible. If you move to the right of where the changing table is, that's the lift.
Inside of it, yeah.
And you see that the edge of the lift only meets the edge of the toilet and the edge of the table, which means there will be significant movement by our personnel to get a child in that position.
From the table.
So what I'm asking is that acceptable? Ms. Grant, do you know?
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure. I know that we came up with about 3 or 4 schemes for each of these, and they were reviewed with some, I want to say, Lee and Lisa and Mark Andre.
Can you just set that one? Where's the lift?
The lift is right here. Lift and lift. So one thing I would also note is we're looking for drive submission for schematic design, and between once we go in for approval for schematic design, we do have the opportunity to continue to adjust the plans and to make sure that everything is perfectly laid out. So between this submission that we're seeking approval for and the GD submission that we'll be going for in about a month or so, we have the opportunity to adjust. So we can definitely look into where it's positioned currently and if it will be accessible the way it needs to be.
Yeah, because that long thing isn't the lift. The lift is that stick that's sticking up.
This right here?
Right.
This, I believe. Yeah, that is the lift.
That is the lift, and it only goes to the edge of the toilet and the edge of the table. Go ahead,
I do
Lisa.
believe that came up, I believe that it was mentioned in our debrief of this rendering, and I do also believe that the lift was being moved to the other side of the changing table so as to accommodate the toilet and the changing table.
Okay, thank you.
And then this third option is in Urban Cave. In this option, we have the same scenario where we have the lift and the changing table and the toilet and some casework, millwork. This is taking up a little bit of a storage room, which I've been told has adequate space, so they're taking it out of there. And then our last iteration is going to be inside of barriers. And within barrier, they ended up taking over the janitor's custodial closet this year, but there was excess room inside of both of the restrooms that they were able to reclaim custodial space, so there's still the same square footage of custodial space storage in there. So we are seeking the, obviously obviously any questions and concerns, but then we're seeking the approval to submit to RISE for this tonight. So the ADA accessible bathroom that we are creating is carved out of existing custodial storage space, but we added custodial storage space here and here. They were able to carve it out of both a little bit of the hallway and a little bit of the bathroom. So the bathroom had a larger gathering area or a larger entry area here. The secondary exit wasn't necessary, so they took over some of that space to be able to.
Okay, so each room has a door.
Yeah. Yeah, so there were actually 2 doors in there, which isn't necessary for code. So we, and this one was never used, so we're told. So now they're just they're keeping the door that is heavily used and removing one. Motion to approve. Second.
Motion approved by Mr. Charbonneau, seconded by Mr. Marino. Mr. Larrabee, any further discussion on this? Ms. Barber, please take a roll call.
Ms. Bonello?
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau?
Yes.
Ms. Grant? Mr. Knight?
Yes.
Mr. Larrabee?
Yes.
Mr. Marino?
Yes.
Ms. Doobie?
Yes, the motion carries 7-0. Thank you. I think the next item might be you as well, though. Jenks and Annex acoustical panels, review, discuss, and act on proposal from Ambient Sound for testing and design services. Oh, I'm sorry. This is the one that we have to table because Jenks is one of the schools listed is incorrect.
Motion to table. Second.
Yeah. Motion to table by Mr. Charbonneau, seconded by Mr. Marino. Ms. Barbie, please take a roll call.
Ms. Bonello?
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau?
Yes.
Ms. Grant? Mr. Knight?
Yes.
Mr. Larrabee?
Yes.
Mr. Marino? Ms. Doobie?
The item is tabled 7-0. The next item is Shea NIASC letter and immediate repairs update. As a review, at the last meeting on Thursday, we heard from the facilities. The facility subcommittee had taken up this issue already, that Shea was placed, I don't want to use the incorrect word, but was given a warning by NIASC. Is that correct? Was put under warning status because of facilities needs in the building. While not an extensive list, safety concerns around electrical, around HVAC, around roofing and auditorium, as well as windows, were all mentioned as in need of repairs. And the facility subcommittee discussed this. We discussed it at the last meeting, and we talked about the highly desirable way of moving forward, which is to use our stage 1 and stage 2 that has already been completed and paid for, and move forward immediately with going out to perform these repairs and perform this work. In order to do that, we need to use the funding source that is identified in stage 1 and stage 2, which is the $220 million bond. Because that is how RIDE's approval works, that once you've completed it, you have identified your funding source. And if we are able to access the $220 million bond, we are able to immediately take up working on these items and hopefully see a very fast turnaround of them. However, accessing that $220 million bond does require, is a conversation that the facilities committee asked me to take on with the city. We had a meeting yesterday. Dr. McWilliams was there, Ms. Devine was there, our attorney was there. It was with the mayor. The mayor was unable to be there, so Mr. Zalazo was there instead. And I expressed to the mayor's team our desire to move forward immediately with these repairs for the Shea community, for the Shea students who are there, for the Shea faculty that are there, and the need to really move expeditiously to get this done. I also highlighted what we would risk with going slowly and not using the $220 million bond. We would risk having to go through a stage 1 and stage 2 again, which would be an expense. we would risk possibly losing out on the ramped up state funding that we are getting, which is an additional 8% back from the state, because we need to have moved through stage 1 and stage 2 already to get that. And I spoke about the possible loss of accreditation, which would also be a loss of state and federal funding, as well as the effect on our students who would have their FAFSA funding possibly at risk if we did lose accreditation. So I explained all this to the mayor's team. The mayor, as I said, was not in that meeting. So he communicated after the meeting. He said that, and so this is what I would share with you all, that, and I will have Ms. Liss send out the exact email to the full committee. It came right before this meeting. He said that he is not opposed to the funding strategy, but he would like to better understand the projects we would be tackling. And he mentioned sitting down with RIDE about future submissions. So I'm not sure if something was lost in the pass off of information, because as I tried to express, we already have done our submissions to RIDE. We've done our stage 1 and stage 2. At this point, this committee is ready to act. We're ready to solicit bids and begin putting together a schedule to do this work. Obviously, some of these big ticket projects we would want to do this summer because they can't do them with students in the building. So like I said, that is my most recent update as of just about right before this meeting, when that email came out, that the mayor said he is not opposed to the funding strategy, but does want another meeting with Colliers, the superintendent, and RIDE. And as I said, I'm not sure why RIDE is included in that, as we have moved past that. But that is where I am right now with that communication. And I said I would report back at this meeting. Mr. Charbonneau.
When the mayor references not being opposed to the funding structure, what structure is he referencing? The 220?
I think that so my email, which the original reach out that I sent to him, proposed that we would like to move forward, that I wanted to know if he had any objection to us moving forward with the $220 million bond, because that is the way that we can move immediately, as opposed to if we have to go through a stage 1 and stage 2 with RIDE, we will have to do, it would be very tough to turn around a stage 1 for February. So we might be talking about a stage 1 in October, a stage 2 the following February, and not being able to do any work on this school until, I'm losing track of my years, 2024, 2025. So I made it very clear that that was the only, I didn't give any other options. So I said that that is how the committee at our last meeting, we talked about that would be our preferred mode of moving forward. As I said, I didn't give any other options. So when he references, he never said the $220 million bond. He said this funding, and I will send the exact email, this funding approach.
I appreciate the clarification. I don't think we're any further than we were on this last meeting when you scheduled a meeting that you had yesterday. And I think the problem is the timeline, that as you illustrated, if we don't access the 220 that's available to us, then we don't have any chance of completing meaningful repairs, renovations at Shea before NEAS comes back for their accreditation decision. So we're talking about having to submit a stage 1 in February. If we don't access the 220, we're going to go through the end of this month, I'm assuming, with no decision on that. I worry that the timeline is tightening on us, and we scheduled a meeting, we had it. There wasn't any kind of resolution. It was to schedule another meeting at another time yet to be determined, or has that meeting been set?
That meeting has not been set.
So I want, the easiest, cleanest approach would be for the city to give this body a not to exceed $20 million from the 220 that has already been approved by the voters, and let us get to work on, from the stage 1 and 2 that we currently have approved, let us get to work on doing $20 million worth of renovations at Shea to keep the accreditation. I think we're playing with fire with this accreditation if we start to drag this timeline out some.
Mr. Knight.
The problem that you've got is we've, at this point, allowed the city administration to interfere with the school department's operation. What you have is an approved bond by the voters of the city of Pawtucket for 200 and I think it was 224 to be exact, that was in fact voted on. There is approximately 100 million left.
So there will be after
Baldwin.
Shea, right, after Baldwin, but the Shea and Tolman renovations together were about 100 million.
Okay.
That's the budgets. The estimated budgets got when.
That's already been approved by the voters of this city. At this point in time, if we put a monetary limit on how much we tell them we're going to borrow to start this repair of the facade and whatever else we have to do at Shea, we risk having to go through stage 1, stage 2 again, which will require a bond vote again. I think at this time we should just say, let's go ahead with the repairs. They're emergency repairs. We do get money back from the state on it. We're losing, if we don't do this, the possibility of losing accreditation for the kids, safety of the staff and the kids in the meantime, and we're losing a year at least. So my recommendation to this committee would be that we go forward with the Shea repairs and don't put a monetary cap on it, even though we know we won't spend the entire $50 million at this point. But we've got the authority of the voters of the city of Pawtucket to do this. The mayor should not step in and say, well, I need to know more and I need to talk to Ryan. It's not his place. This is a Pawtucket School Department building. It is in the Pawtucket School Department's possession. We are responsible for its maintenance. We're responsible for its safety. Let's move forward with this because it is an emergency. Let's protect our staff and our students immediately.
My name is Mel. So the question for this committee is, are we taking any action tonight? Are we taking any vote? I mean, we obviously can't take any action to actually go out to bid or anything like that because this isn't, that's not how it's listed. It's listed as NIASC letter and repairs update. So obviously I do not think that, I think that communication definitely needs to continue with the city on this, but is the committee taking any official direction at this meeting, or are we putting items on future agendas? Mr. Knight. Oh, I'm sorry. Attorney.
One of the issues is that with phase 1, phase 2 targets specific funding.
Mm-hmm.
And so even if we were able to get funding from some other bucket of money that might be accessible to the district, it would require us to restart phase 1, phase 2, which is one of the issues we're trying to avoid.
Yeah.
And so the city does play a role within allowing us to access that bond money, even though it is approved by the voters. And so we are at a point in identifying the urgency that's at play here. But the communication, or rather the getting the city to facilitate the access that funds is a necessary step.
Mhm.
steps.
Yeah, and so as I said, I think that it is important to articulate that although this is an expense and it is a bonding expense out of the bonding money that the voters have approved, I really worked to articulate yesterday in the meeting all of the money that would be lost if we do not use this first approach, namely that we are going to do this work. At this point, we are not, this body is not going to risk losing accreditation for our students. So we have to do this work. However, even with us saying we have to do this work, NIAS could come back in November and say, you haven't even started it yet, because if we can't use this 220 million, then we have to, in order to get reimbursed, go back out through stage 1 and stage 2. So once again, I articulated that we have already expended, and Ms. Devine can give me the exact number. Ms. Devine, how much did we expend on the stage 1 and stage 2 for? Around $2 million has been expended already on a stage 1 and stage 2. That money is completely lost. And some design work was done, but that money is completely lost if we have to do another stage 1 and stage 2. In addition, we have to then pay for another stage 1 and stage 2. In addition, we lose the 8% additional funding, and we risk state and federal funding. So all of that loss of funding is at risk if we do not act now, as Mr. Knight articulated. Ms. Devine?
I'm sorry, and I just want to add one thing. A new stage 1 and 2 would do no good if we didn't have a funding source.
Yeah.
So we would need a funding source, and if that's 20 million, we would need to find 20 million.
Yeah. Mr. Knight, then Mr. Larby.
Make a motion that we start the process immediately to repair, do the emergency repairs that are needed due to the NIASC letter. And that this fact has been included in the bonding that's already approved. This is an emergency. We are allowed to act on it tonight because it is an emergency. Am I correct?
The body can act on it, but the issue with proceeding without accessing that bond money, which we still have to go through the city.
We still have access to that money. It's already guaranteed.
It was approved by the voters, but
Yes, it was.
So we still have to go through the municipality to be able to issue those bonds. So
For them to issue the bond, that's right.
But they would have to do that. So we have to make sure that that gets done before we start any work. Otherwise, we don't have money to pay folks to do that work, even on an emergency basis. If we do it from another pool of money, if one were available, it would require us to potentially restart those phases that we were talking about, phase 1, phase 2, which would be the loss of the work that's already been done and paid for.
Okay, we're all in agreement that this is an emergency situation. My question becomes this. If this is an emergency that we must do, we have approval of the voters. The city at that point has already gotten approval for that bonding. They're withholding it to be, I don't know what you want to say, but the city thinks they can just say, nope, we're not going to do it. And our kids are going to suffer? Not in my lifetime. I made a motion. I'd like somebody to second it. What was the motion? That we move forward on this process immediately by seeking bids, et cetera, for the emergency repairs.
I'll second the motion for discussion purposes.
Okay. Okay. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, I was wondering, and thank you for the information. It seems like if we want to move urgently, that we're really, unfortunately, at the mercy of whether or not the city wants to cooperate, unless there's another option on the table. things that you have stated that are in risk and jeopardy of losing if we don't act accordingly. Other than that, I'm not sure what we can do without the city really cooperating.
So I think we need to respond to the mayor in writing, specifically what we lose, which is accreditation, which means we have high schools that has no value, and it has no value to our students. And if he wishes, ask him to clarify what he means by being part of RIDE in the future. Ask him to clarify that, because we need to know what he's looking to do. But I do believe, you know, and I'll stand with the others, I agree, we need to do something. RIDE told us we couldn't do it. Then they sent us a letter that said, do it or else you lose everything. And now the mayor is saying, well, I agree, but I want to be part of the future. So
I clarified to just the modifier of they. RIDE didn't send us the letter.
no.
No, okay. So RIDE,
Originally, RIDE
Yes.
sent us a letter that said we couldn't do.
we can't do any work on
modifications.
Shay. Yes.
Correct.
Yes. So
So you're
RIDE told
Tolman,
us to put Shay and Tolman on hold for all repairs.
Correct.
The letter from NEASC is the one you're referring to that said we must do repairs.
So the
Okay.
NEAS says we must do them or we lose the accreditation, which we would have done them had RIDE said we could. So we need to clarify, and I think we need to put it in writing with the attorney's assistant to outline all of these things and get it to them and ask for a response by the end of the year.
And I do think that one of the things that came up in the call, once again, the mayor was not on the call, but with Mr. Palazzo, one of the things that came up were questions about the exact scope of work that we were looking to do. And as I said, I knew the big ticket items, but he mentioned lockers were referenced, and whether or not that would be in there. I said, I believe we would just be looking at immediate safety upgrades, but perhaps being able to better clarify those items and give a rough estimate would be helpful. Mr. Charbonneau, and then Mr. Knight, I think I saw your hand out of the corner of my eye. Okay, Mr. Charbonneau. Mr. Charbonneau, you okay with that?
They put us on hold in discussion of unified high school. That was their hold.
Okay. Mr. Charbonneau?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I would just, Mr. Labby, I agree wholeheartedly with you. And before I expand on that, I just to level set, right. We had a plan to fully renovate Shay that was approved on multiple occasions. And then once the conversation about a unified high school came, that's when RIDE said, okay, we're going to stop spending money at Shay until we decide on a unified high school. So I don't think RIDE is against us doing renovations at Shay. But having said that, I agree with Mr. Lau. A formal letter from this committee to both the mayor and the city council requesting that they provide access to the existing bond so that we can meet some of these immediate repairs. I don't think we put a dollar figure on it, but I think we can articulate certainly from our stage 1 and 2 that we've already done those big ticket items that will be meaningful and impactful. And I think we sent it to the council and the mayor requesting that they take immediate action on it and then see when we have a future council member sitting right here, Mr. Marino, for your first meeting.
Yeah, we do. We can just send him with the letter.
Right, and of course outlining the, the consequences of not acting.
So, so I know we have a special meeting on Monday. There are obviously, there's a current motion on the table, so we couldn't take another motion to send a letter, but the two options would be for you to authorize me to sign a letter after legal has drafted it, articulating what we've spoken about. The second option would be to have that letter drafted and put on the next agenda on Monday. But like I said, that is only if a motion is put on the table for a letter.
I'll amend my motion to include the letter.
So the current motion is to move forward with the emergency repairs for health and safety and send a letter requesting.
In addition, we will send a letter to the city council and the mayor.
Requesting that we access the bond money.
I think we've moved forward as much as we have the plans, we have everything available to us. I think if you want to pull that portion of it from your motion, Mr. Knight, and
okay, so
have it just be the letter.
We have to move forward with the action. An action has to be taken by this committee today. Agreed. Now, sending a letter isn't an action. That's in the future. Because regardless of whether they say they're giving us the money, they're giving us the money. Let's be realistic. It's been approved by the voters. They have an obligation to fund the schools properly. Doing an emergency repair is funding the school properly. What's the issue? The mayor doesn't want this?
So the next action, if there was going to be next action, even on an emergency basis, would be issuing out our RFPs to see who's going to do the work and deciding that basis. I don't see how we can do that without the funding secured. And so the motion as it stands right now, even as amended, would be problematic as far as ensuring that we have the funding source secured. One has to go before the other. At this point, the letter, or the purpose of the letter, as far as I understand it, as it's been proposed, would be to make a public declaration of the emergency basis that's at stake here, which I feel like everybody has a good understanding of what that is, and requiring an answer, an immediate answer from the administration as far as accessing that bond money. There may be other considerations that I don't want to speak for. I might be above me for sure, as far as they might be taking into account the amount of bonds they are willing to issue or can issue, but that's besides the point. There is an approved amount of money. It's well within range of what we need to address the issue. The letter could certainly address that. What's at stake, the dollar amounts of money that would be at stake if we were to lose accreditation or lose federal and local money upon losing accreditation. All that can be put in a letter for sure. But going forward directly with addressing those issues with health security funding is the biggest issue I can see right now. The motion as it stands right now, even if it were to be amended, we still have that component of doing work that we can't technically pay for.
Mr. Knight.
That approval's already there. The money's already been bonded. It hasn't been taken out of the bond that was done. So the money's there. The mayor can say, oh, no. It's there.
Okay. So there's a, Ms. Grant.
Motion to send a letter to the mayor and the city council.
Mr. Knight's motion is on the table right now. So we can call the vote on Mr. Knight's motion, which I would like to clarify is to move forward with emergency repairs and send a letter. That is the current motion. It has been seconded. Thank you, Ms. Vanilla. I will do just that. Ms. Barber, will you please call vote?
Ms. Vanilla?
No.
Mr. Charbonneau?
No.
Ms. Grant? Mr. Knight?
Yes.
Mr. Larby?
No.
Mr. Marino? Ms. Juby?
No, the motion fails 6-1. So now we can have Ms. Grant.
So I'd like to now make a motion to send a letter to the city council and the mayor asking them whether we have a meeting or is before the end of the year, to decide on what will, just kind of get more clarification in regards to Shay, and that it's an emergency and that we need to get this done as soon as possible.
So, as I said, would you want me to draft that and sign it, articulating those points in consultation with legal, or do you want that letter on the Monday agenda? I would feel confident. I feel like you mentioned a few things that I hadn't mentioned originally, as in possibly asking for a meeting. The original letter that was referenced was to articulate the need, ask for the funds, and that's it. That was the original, that we articulate the need and we respectfully ask for confirmation that we have access to the funds. So I feel like that's a pretty simplistic letter for me to think about drafting, but you added a few more ideas in there, and I want to make sure that I don't write something that necessarily doesn't reflect what you're saying.
Well, I think we need to, kind of focus on the urgency.
Okay.
I think the way it was interpreted from one to another, I think the urgency wasn't there, whether it be his staff or, and I think we really have to, make sure that they understand what the urgency is in regards to this, and that we really do need to know what we have to do, so we can get approval as soon as possible, so we can move forward.
Okay. So a letter that articulates the urgency, spells out the need, and asks for the funding source.
Yeah.
All the repercussions as well.
Spells out need and repercussions. I'm going to be checking with Ms. Barbara afterwards.
So question, we have that letter, that's fine, but that does not ask for clarification of what they said about meeting with RIDE in the future.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Are we gonna ignore that?
Well,
I'm not following. Who said anything about meeting with RIDE in the future?
well, no, the mayor did. That was the mayor's brief. The mayor asked for, if I'm correct, Dr. McWilliams, asked for a meeting, and you were also, did you also see that email? Yeah, okay, yeah, so the action step from the email was to set up a meeting with the superintendent's office, the Collier's staff, and to loop in RIDE and the mayor's office. So I'm not saying that meeting
Right, exactly.
doesn't, yeah, I don't know if that was implied or not. So there's been a motion to send a letter. I just need to have clarification if the committee is confident with me sending that letter once it's been reviewed by legal, or if this committee wants to then see and approve that letter. So the current motion is just that we send a letter. It's been seconded.
I think the time sensitivity of this thing, I trust your judgment to capture the points and the feelings of this committee. I think everybody's had a chance to weigh in the discussion of it. I mean, for me, it's as simple as, can we access the 220 million that's remaining? I mean, I'm not so sure what the big discussion is about. There's money on the table. It's been earmarked for this school. There's plans that have been drawn, that have been approved every step of the way. And now we're at a point where somebody's telling us you're risking your accreditation if you don't do this. And we're saying, let's have another meeting and figure out where we're going to get the funding. We know where the funding, we have the funding.
So there's a motion, it has been seconded. I'm not hearing any specific need for the letter to come back before the committee, so, but obviously the the committee will be sent the letter when it's sent. You'll be copied on. Yes, Mr. Miller.
Can we ask for a response by a certain time?
I think we
Without
can ask
any-
for an immediate response as soon as possible. Yes.
Has everyone seen the issues at Shea, or is it only us who have seen it?
As in walk to school?
No, no, no. Oh.
The letter?
Yeah.
The letter was sent to the mayor.
Okay.
Yeah. No, the full letter, the actual letter itself was sent to Shay. In addition, I sent an email explaining that in order to start the meeting, explaining the funding and everything in writing. But like I said, this would be a formal letter sent to the mayor and city council. After consulting with legal. Seeing no further discussion, Ms. Barbie, please take a roll call vote.
Ms. Spinola?
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau?
Yes.
Ms. Grant?
Yes.
Ms. Larby?
Yes.
Mr. Marino? Ms. Juby?
Yes, the motion carries 6-0, and the committee, I will be sure that you are also copied on that letter when it is sent. Okay. The next item is approval of funding for Shea Masonry Stabilization Project.
Evening, at the Facilities Committee on October 19th and a subsequent school committee meeting on October 27th, the committee had approved emergency masonry repairs based on immediate need to repair the masonry parapet at the Shea High School. Sorry, there's a bug. It's still there. Oh, sorry. And it was the masonry parapet at Shea High School in the interest of the student safety. At these meetings, it was proposed that we would proceed with funding this work under emergency approval, immediate health and safety, which is an approval mechanism designed for emergency repairs with the standing housing aid reimbursement. However, we have been informed by RIDE in subsequent discussions that they will not grant an emergency approval for work at Shea while there is over the $46 million earmark approval for Shea under the 234. So what was essentially going to be the bonded approvals, they're saying that those approvals are still there if we have a new high school and wouldn't be using, per se, we would be using Shea, but in other words, they're not saying use the funds, they're just saying you have approval for those building repairs. Yep. So I was just going to ask at this time, without a clear direction, if the bond funds are available in the 234 approval, or if the remaining balance is going to be part of the unified school project. The recommendation at this time is to utilize the capital reserve to submit for housing aid reimbursement via the standard process. In other words, it won't be pay-go, but we would need to use our capital reserves, the school department's capital reserve funds, to get this project done. And I believe it's something under 500,000, because I know that that's the emergency repair. That was the one that was on the roof there.
Motion to approve on the table by Mr. Charbonneau. It was seconded by Ms. Vinolo. Any discussion, Mr. Charbonneau?
So, Melissa, just to close the loop a little bit, Mr. Knight's previous comments about proceeding with emergency repairs, RIDE has already told us they're not reimbursing us for emergency repairs at Shea while we have $46 million
in approval.
So
yeah, not talking about the bond, just the approval.
Right.
Yeah. So
Right.
so there's two things. So they don't. So the emergency repairs, and we did this. I think last June we did some emergency repairs, but at we did the annex. We didn't have any approval for the annex. So last June, I remember we submitted some security and some door replacements. The reason they granted that as an emergency, we used capital funds, and then they're giving us the housing aid back when we're done.
that's the same process. What they were saying is when I submitted that letter, they were like, we'll get back to you. And then once the voters had passed the new high school, they were like, well, you're not going to be using that approval. They weren't talking the bond, they were only talking the approval.
Yeah, okay.
So that's why we're asking right now, since we don't know if we have access to the bond, if we could use 500,000 in the capital. And then that would be reimbursed to us once the project is done. It would be reimbursed to us next year because it's under $1 million. That's that, whatever that paraport, yeah.
Please take a roll call.
Hello? Mr. Charbonneau?
Yes.
Ms. Grant? Mr. Larby?
Yes.
Mr. Marino? Ms. Doobie?
Yes, the motion carries 6-0. Thank you. The next is RFP award for PSD shirts, jackets, gloves, and hats. Oh,
Quotes to supply shirts for employees, all employees throughout the district, jackets, hats, and gloves for maintenance and custodial staff through an RFP. Bidders were able to bid on all items together or each individually. We only received one response to our RFP, and that was from Spirit Recognition. They're a local company in Pawtucket on Central Avenue. They were going to provide us, they gave us prices on PSD logo short sleeve polo shirts, $14.50 for a small, all the way up to XXL, and anything above that would be $19.50 each. They also gave us prices on the jackets with the PSD logo also for our maintenance and custodial staff, $134 from small to 3X, and anything up above that would be $146.50. I recommend at this time that school accept a proposal from Spirit Recognition and award them for the jackets and the short sleeve polos. They did not bid on the hats or the gloves.
and a motion approved by Ms. Manolo, seconded by Ms. Grant. Ms. Manolo.
Isn't that, the same quote as we had
For what?
previously?
We've done business with them before, at least my department has, plus other departments have gone out and had shirts from them. The quotes are pretty close to what we've done work with them before, so they've been in line from what.
Yeah, they sound very similar.
Ms. Barbary, please take a roll call.
Ms. Bonolo?
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau?
Yes.
Ms. Grant? Mr. Larby?
Yes.
Mr. Marino? Ms. Doobie?
Yes, the motion carries 6-0. The next item is installation of flooring in Curvin, McCabe, Tolman, and Barrier.
That would be me again. We sought out proposals from vendors through the MPA number 364 to do floor installation. There were 14 classrooms at Barrier, 2 at Curvin, and a music room at Tolman. The original flooring at Barrier is about 20 to 25 years old, but it actually had held up pretty well until COVID time, and that's when we all know we started eating in the classrooms, so it started damaging the carpet, and it's just stuff that we just don't feel like we can clean further, and I would like to replace it. The 2 classrooms I'm doing at Curvin were the 2 that weren't done last summer, because I believe we did 6, so we're doing the final 2 there. And then there's a music room at Tolman in the back, and I believe that carpet up there is probably close to 40 years old. I walked through all of these areas with 4 vendors off the MPA where they did all their measurements. We received back 2 bids, one being the lowest from Authority Flooring for $98,560. This work would be done between January and June, as long as everything is in. So Chris Silva will take it over. At that point, what he's going to do is need to coordinate with them and tell them we have a break in February, we have a break in April. But we're also going to have to probably do some Friday nights, some Saturdays, so our guys can at least get in there on a Sunday and put everything back, even if it's only one that they do. So this was based majority, probably half of it, on second shift labor. So like I said, Authority Flooring was the lowest of the 2 bids, $98,560. Casey Maintenance Incorporated came in at $118,216.13. It's my recommendation to approve the proposal from Authority Flooring for the sum of $98,560.
And a motion to approve by Ms. Bonolo was seconded by Mr. Larby and Ms. Grant. Ms. Bonolo.
I can't get my screen to reduce so I can read what I'm supposed to be reading, but you're putting carpeting in Barrier?
everybody knows I'm not a fan of carpeting, but
So I'm
I'm
asking you why.
I'm redoing carpeting again in Varia because the rooms are quite larger than a lot of the rooms throughout the districts, and the ceilings are a little bit higher. My fare is like we had in our media centers. I didn't want to put carpet in there. My fare was echo, and that's what we've had in times when we put tile in. So that's why I'm doing the 14 rooms there as carpeting. Obviously, I'm doing the carpeting at Tolman because it's a music room to kind of help with the sound, but I'm going to do the 2 at Curvin. I'm going to do those with the VCT tile. And I've told teachers if they ever have issues, they can just talk to their principal if they would need me to get them a bigger, a throw rug or something. So kind of cushion it. I can do that for them also.
Okay, thank you.
A motion to approve, it's been seconded. Ms. Barbie, please take a roll call.
Ms. Bonello?
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau?
Yes.
Ms. Grant?
Yes.
Mr. Larby?
Yes.
Mr. Marino?
No.
Ms. Juby?
Yes, the motion carries 6-0. The next item is Curtis Blind's RFP approval.
Chris Silver went out with an RFP for proposals to remove old shades and installation of new shades in 10 classrooms in Curtis. It's the back end of Curtis where the shades are on like an old rail system, and they're probably existing from the building. The shades themselves were probably like an old aluminum, and they've seen better days. So Chris and I went in there, inspected out. He walked the building with at least, I think, 4 vendors. He received 2 proposals back. It'll be to demo the old ones out and put the new shades in. They would be like a manually operated roller clutch shade that has the metal chain on it. We had 2 proposals from Lonergan Incorporated at $6,847 and Walker Specialties at $11,890. This would all be second shift work, or if they can get the material in time, we'll hopefully be able to do this in the February vacation. My recommendation would be to accept DM Lonergan proposal for removal and installation of shades at Flora Curtis for the sum of $6,847.
And a motion approved by Ms. Bonello, seconded by Ms. Grant.
That were there when I went to school.
They're existing. They are.
Ms. Barba, if you please take a roll call.
Ms. Bonello?
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau?
Yes.
Ms. Grant? Mr. Larby?
Yes.
Mr. Marino?
Yes.
Ms. Juby?
Yes, motion carries 6-0. The next is award of kilns, Portland Pottery.
Hi, good evening. On November 9th, we went out to bid for replacement of ceramic kilns for Goff Middle School, Shea High School, and Tolman High School. The bid was for 3 Scut KM 1027 ceramic kilns or equivalent product. The awarded vendor would be responsible for the removal and disposal of old kilns, furnish and install with appropriate compliance the new kilns. Installation would include training for our PSD staff at each of the 3 schools for proper operation of the equipment. No bids were received on the closing day of November 22nd. Therefore, we had an addenda sent out with a closing date of December 8th. Only 1 bid was received from Portland Pottery in the amount of $15,909.90. The amount was for all 3 schools and includes freight, installation, kiln removal, installation of equipment, electrical and ventilation, kilns with touchscreen, travel time, tutorials, and training. I do have to say that our 3 kilns, especially the one at Tolman, has reached its end of service capacity, and Shea and Goff are also reaching that. So the recommendation is that the award of the service contract be given to Portland Pottery in the supply in the amount of $15,909.90.
Motion approved by Ms. Bonello, seconded by Mr. Larby. Ms. Bonello.
Couple questions. What's the warranty on that?
Yep, good question. So the warranty is 2 years from date of purchase on each kiln.
Okay, and the second question is, what's the life on the kilns that JMW uses?
JMW's kiln is still in good condition, so we're not replacing that as of right now.
Okay.
It's been taken care of, yeah.
And these items, these kilns, they're movable when so
they can be uninstalled.
They can be uninstalled and then moved to another location.
Right, with the electrical and ventilation.
Ms. Barry, please take a roll call.
Ms. Fenolo,
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau,
Yes.
Ms. Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Larby,
Yes.
Mr. Marino, Ms. Stube.
Yes. Motion carries 6-0. Next is award of student information systems contract. Dr. Williams?
Yes, so good evening, everyone. We have before you a recommendation to award and move away from our current student information service provider to a new one with the changing demands in metrics for school accountability and the need for a robust student information system as part of our strategic plan. Which we then proceeded with a full review team of many different stakeholders, administrators, teachers, all staff level, clerks, paraprofessionals were invited to participate, held presentations, sessions, demos, focus groups. And you can see, first I would like to say that unfortunately Hirsch was not able to be here tonight, otherwise he would be bringing this forward. He is celebrating his mother's 90th birthday party, so I wanted to make sure that I shared that with you. So you can see that the 3 awards, the current provider that we're using, it's important to notice that the one that we're recommending, which is Power School, once we looked at those 3 and had the presentations, the demos, and all the review of that by all the stakeholders, and we narrowed it down to the one that we believed is to be the most robust for many different reasons. Hirsch did go back and forth with the vendor and incorporated some additional things. So in the other 2, you do not see those additional. So some of the additional pieces that were included would be a conversion, an extensive data conversion for what he's looking for is 20 years of data. So that's an excess course cost that's incorporated into that second, into Power School. And also Performance Matters, which is a tool for assessment, and also additional PD. So moving into a system like this, which we believe is a strong interface that will take us down the road many, many years, we would want to make sure we have quite a bit of professional learning and development for staff. So we included an increased number of PD. So those are the 3 items why you see that recommendation is at that. I do want to state too that if if the school committee approves this and we have a signed agreement before December 31st, we'll have a cost saving of close to $100,000.
Can we just clarify, how much money did we set aside out of ESSER 3 for this?
About $2 million.
Okay. And
so-
because I see that this is a 3-year, this is listed out as 3 years, but I know
Yes.
ESSER 3 sunsets at a certain point.
Yes, but if we make an agreement to sign into a contract, that would still, all that would be invoiced and covered.
We can use all ESSER
Yes.
3 to cover this.
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to check. Okay.
So with that being said, we'll have more than enough that's allotted in ESSA, and we'll also be able to do all those additional, the PD and things like that. That we're going to do. So the recommendation is to award the contract to the Power School for a student information system.
And a motion approved by Mr. Larrabee, seconded by Ms. Grant. Discussion. Ms. Bernal.
So when we bring the system online, are we going to put more people in our IT to?
So that would be the goal. We also incorporated part of that funding would be, it would be for a limited period of time that you have, the ESSA funds. And we also could bring in a consultant too as well.
Why a consultant and not a?
Well, we might be able to do,
because
we might want to do both. It really would be up to Hirsch.
Yeah, because we are short-staffed.
Yeah, I would think that we would be looking to do that, which would be, that it would be covered in those funds, but only for those 2 years. So you'd have to look past that.
Okay.
Mr. Charbonneau.
Why are they so much more than?
So
Initial year Skyward 78,000, Power Schools at 541,000?
So you have to understand, we already did our integration with Skyward. We're operating with that student information system now. So that's just our annual fee.
Right, but it says vendor cost including data conversion. So I'm assuming as
Well,
I'm
there would
reading
be
this.
no data conversion with that
Okay,
company.
so, so they're 400,000, 430 more than Skyward and 200,000 more than Aspen.
So incorporated into Power School is the extra PD. So those dollars are incorporated into that. In addition, an extra data migration that I spoke to that Hirsch wanted to bring over to make sure that we had 20 years of data. So that would be an additional cost in addition to Performance Matters. So none of those three, once we narrowed it down and the selection by far of all the stakeholders was to go with Power School, then he went on into discussions with them about adding additional PD, additional cost hours for data migration, and also Performance Matters.
Right. I guess my concern is, and I get ESSER will cover the initial 3-year invoice, but year 4 and 5.
It would be so year 4. So the additional years would be.
Well, year 3 Power School is 150,000 more than Skyward and 60,000 more than Aspen.
And the nature of the systems are significantly different. We do.
I guess that's what I'm asking.
Yes.
What's the difference for?
Sure. So maybe I could have some of the staff that would like to participate in sharing out. I know special ed, RTI, MTSS, none of those things that we're able to do at this point. Dr. Andre, did you want to speak to the special ed portion?
Sure. Evening.
So respects to special populations, one of the cons with respects to Skyward is if we think about an individual education plan, the individual education plan will provide specific frequency service time of hours for specific service providers. And unfortunately, all that information is capsulated in what we refer to as a PDF document. The aggregate information is not available. This particular platform, Power School, which formerly was purchased a former program that we used to use called TieNet, which is very popular in the world of in this genre, which is what special educators would prefer, related service providers would prefer, and our own team would prefer. So what that's going to provide us the ability to do is really look at the analytics to really assist with projections, forecasting, and programming in the future. So for special education purposes, this is a huge win for our department, and we would really look to move forward in that direction.
And I just want to mention too, I don't know, Sarah, did you want to speak to any of the interfacing, any of your team teachers?
Some of that may get above
Okay.
my level of comprehension. I'm just.
The price difference of the 3 is glaring, and for our district to be able to sustain this, once the ESSER money dries up, we don't ever want to go backwards in 3 years, is all I'm saying.
Can Ms. Vanilla?
I talked to Mr. Vine earlier. By any chance, did you find out how much we paid initially?
So I went back into the system and,
Oh, you're talking about from 10, 12 years ago?
Yep.
well, it was like, it's about, I want to say it was 2014. So in 14, we spent about 135,000, and then 15, it was like 67,000, and then in 16 it was 125. But what I'm guessing by the large number, then a decrease, and then a large number, I think we may have added, and I wouldn't be able to answer that without Fresh. I think we may have added modules. You know what I mean? I don't think that we installed them all at once because it was probably, and again, I just arrived here when that was going on, but I looked at the payments. So yeah, those were the initial years, and then, you know, it's been consistently, you know, to current date, like we pay, and you know, we have the alert system through Skyward, we have the SIS, and for those two things, it's about $77 currently.
Would it be possible to get a comparison of what Skyward offers us and what the new programs offer us?
I think
We could get that. I think that there was a review team that looked at those items. I don't know if we want to, as I said with Mr. Sharp, I don't know if it's going to go more into details, but we could yeah. I know that from a parent perspective. Is it writing? From a parent perspective, I hear regularly from parents that Skyward is difficult to navigate. I know right now we're scheduling conferences for our students, and the way that you go about that and how you have to put in for the times and the way that you get the emails about them, it's clunky, you know. It's one of the only kind of constants of I've had kids in the system. I've had kids in our schools for 9 years, and that has remained constant with kind of this older interface. And so I don't know, I think that there's good reason to look to expand it, and I'm in support of this, but there's a motion on the floor, yeah. But Ms. Benola, do you want to still have that emailed out on like the difference, the comparison between the two?
Well, either way, I'd like to know
Okay.
what it's giving us, how much bang for the buck.
Ms. Barber, can you please make a note for Ms. List to send that out to the committee? And then can you please call the vote?
Ms. Spinola?
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau?
Yes.
Ms. Grant?
Yes.
Mr. Larby?
Yes.
Mr. Marino?
Yes.
Ms. Doobie?
Yes, the motion carries 6-0. The next item is approval of budget transfers. Do we have these? Oh.
To you until today, but I keep that on as a standard action, just in case, because sometimes they pop up at the last minute and then we have to wait to have another meeting. So the first one is from the Special Education Department, and it's a transfer out of from the Transportation Special Ed line of $65,000 to Psychologist Services of $65,000. And the second one is an error on my part, or it might not have been an error. I may have mistakenly thought that we were going to purchase the athletic equipment and then have someone install it. So I'm asking for the $16,000 that we previously got approval to move to athletic equipment, to move it to purchase service, because we just awarded a contract for the person to install the clock and purchase it at the same time. So in you call that a purchase service, even though there's a piece of equipment involved. If we bought just the equipment and then we hired a different person to install it, then it would be a piece of equipment and then the install service. So that's just a correction on my end to transfer it to purchase service. And that's for $16,000.
Motion to approve the budget transfers by Ms. Spinola, seconded by Ms. Grant. Ms. Barber, please take roll call.
Ms. Spinola?
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau?
Yes.
Ms. Grant? Mr. Larby?
Yes.
Mr. Marino?
Yes.
Ms. Doobie?
Yes, the motion carries 6-0. We are now in discussion items. We have several, so I'm going to do A, B, and C individually, and then we can take D through I as we typically do as a group. So A is school building budgets. Ms. Benola asked for this. No, Ms. Grant asked for this. Sorry, Ms. Grant asked for this to be on the agenda. If you want to speak to it, or you just want to call it Ms. Devine.
Oh, I do want to speak to
Okay.
it. I asked Ms. Devine if she would be able to present tonight in regards to the individual school building budgets. The reason for this is I just want to understand better how it works. A couple of weeks ago, there was an article in the paper, Curve and McCabe, the kids needed toys. They were fortunate enough that one of the teachers had a connection, and the students were able to receive a donation. However, we have some schools that might not have those connections. And, you know, I think our teachers and our students, our teachers should be aware that there are items that they can go to their principals and discuss, along with funds that we, the school committee, have also given to each school this year. So I just wanted Ms. Devine to kind of touch on it a little bit to just kind of clarify how it actually works.
Okay, so each year, we've been, since we've transitioned to a new system, Tyler Munis, we've changed a couple of the steps, but we tried to do it inside the Munis system, and it's a little bit overwhelming for people. So what we have done the last few years and in previous years is we send out worksheets to the various principals and department heads, and then they can submit what their needs are. And so what we do is, you know, a budget is something that, and we hold trainings, but a budget is not a once a year task. It's an all year ongoing planning process. So a lot of times when I get up here each year and present the budget to you, there are sections in the budget that I say, you know, I base it on history. So we send those sheets out. We usually do that. We're getting ready now in my office. Jason, who has helped me transform some of the manual processes into automated processes. We get those sheets, we send them out, and we let each department and building principal know, you know, pretty much to stay in the realm of what they had last year, because we currently don't know what our funding is next year. With that being said, once we do find out, and if we were not done with the process, we reflect back with them and say, you know, if there are any additional needs and things like that, but keep your wish list. This past summer, we held a training for administrators. We did it over multiple days. People had an opportunity to come. They weren't forced to. I think the majority of them attended. And for a couple who really couldn't attend, they called me up and had questions. But we also have a presentation that was put together that Jason put together, and I had presented along with him, in talking about how to go about and planning your budget and what the state law means about site-based management. So each school principal has a budget at their school level and at the department heads at the department level, and they go through and they allocate the money as they see fit. I don't get into that minutia part of, hey, Joanne, you're the principal at the school, you need to go ask Jay, who's one of it. They do that themselves. It's their budget that they push forward for a recommendation to the superintendent, who then pushes the budget forward for a recommendation to the school committee. So they all have an allocation. What I try to give is helpful hints, like nursing supplies. We typically, and this has been an ongoing thing, we probably have to increase it. This is typically $3.25 per enrolled student in your building. So we try to encourage the principals to think along those lines, to ask their staff for some, you know, items that they may want, similar to the 750K initiative that you all have approved. So that is how they go about building the budget. We are still working on what the requirements are. I have a purchasing procedures document. It's a booklet that I pass out every year. I pass it out. The quoting process, I will tell you, it has improved. Some of the longtime principals here reached out and they kind of get the process. But then when you get new principals, you have to teach all over again, which is fine. I love doing that. But it is not a one-time, and we made that clear at the summer training. This isn't a one-time thing. When you, through the year, as you see that you may need something, you should be jotting that down. So when budget season comes again, or if somebody's asking for something, these are the things that you should have somewhere in a notebook that you're thinking about putting in your next year budget. but essentially the state law says that building principals are supposed to have an allocated pot of money that they build based on working with their school teams and staff and what the needs are that align with the goals of the district, the strategic plan and the goals. So that's basically how it's done. I'll probably be rolling out worksheets and then giving them until the end of January. We usually have presented anywhere from early March to sometime in April. We get the budget to the mayor by the end of April. Once those sheets come back, I put them all together. I then meet with the assistant superintendents and the superintendent. We then go through what the needs are at the schools at those same times that they're doing the operations piece of budget, like what they need in their school for supplies, office testing, fees, things like that, testing for the AP exams at the high school level, graduation, rentals, things like that. While they're doing that, they're also communicating out to the assistant superintendents possibly what their needs are for the classrooms, meaning teacher or staff but that's basically what the process is. We haven't mastered it because you do have change of staff all the time. So you're trying to improve something. You say, hey, maybe if I do it this way, it might be a lot easier for them. So it is a continually learning process. Love going through it. Always open my door and phone calls for any questions that anybody has. I directly take those calls myself. Here to help, but again, it's just mastering that you can't do it just at this time. Like you should be planning all year long on what your possible needs. I'm hoping that when I roll this out, that maybe some of the teachers have put together some of the things that they may have heard people ask for. I wish we had this, I wish we had that. And I know the article that you're talking about, and those types of things, I think they were recess items, but those are generic supplies, non-instructional supplies. They have a line that they could budget money for in non-instructional supplies. I think if I was in a building and I was a principal and I saw, we didn't have maybe the hopscotch or the other playthings and we needed hula hoops, they're not really that expensive that you can replenish. They should go on a cycle. They should be replenishing things on a cycle. And I think that with all of the work that's going on, maybe that isn't something that's at that foremost, but I do try to drill it. I know that Lisa and Lee constantly say, hey, think about, if they ask for something, they say, hey, think about putting that in your budget, for next year. So I know that they're continually supporting how I'm rolling this out. So that's basically what happens. We will not know, and I did ask RIDE, I reached out to the contact at RIDE, we will not know our number until after January. Sometimes they used to release it end of November, sometimes end of December, but this year they said we will not know our funding until January. You're welcome. Hope that helped.
Are there any principals that, not that you have to tell us who, that didn't use their budget that was allocated to them?
Well, I mean, I think that, no one spends their budget to an exact dollar amount. I have to be honest with you. There are sometimes some money's left over for whatever reason. I couldn't off the top of my head pinpoint, nor am I going to say, but I mean, the budget reports run there. Sometimes there are leftover monies. They may wait a little longer. I do send reminders. Come February, we send a memo out from the business office reminding everyone to get their orders in. I think that with the pandemic, we probably had some extra additional savings because maybe they had stuff that they had purchased before when schools were closed, so they were utilizing that. But yes, to answer your question plainly, yes, not always is the money fully spent.
In the $750 that we
$750K?
Yeah, that we gave to the teachers.
Yeah. So those orders are rolling in. They're rolling in. We're probably at about spent and covered. I think the last time we checked, we might have been at 37%, 38%, somewhere around there. So we're around there, which is I will say that sounds like it's great, but that's not that bad. There are some, I've sent out to Lisa. She's reaching out to some of the ones that have been, maybe working on some other things in their school and haven't had a chance to do some of them. But you know, they're rolling out. They're definitely rolling out. And I did roll out the library last week, as I said I would do it right after Thanksgiving holiday. Haven't heard back from anyone, but I did roll out, hey, your new media centers, you each have the certain dollar amount. But yeah, I mean, the orders are rolling in.
Did you tell them that if they don't use it, they lose it?
I did not say that. Not yet.
Because we'll roll it into the next budget. So if they don't use it.
Yeah, and I had it. So it's funny that you just say that. So one of the things that we did is we created a special code at the end so we could earmark it separately. And we're not transferring it out of the capital until we actually see the dollars happening. So we're going to do it on a quarter. So when we get to the end of December, whatever we have, we'll move it out of the capital because you approved it from the capital, but I didn't want to move it and then they don't spend it and we move it back. And, you know, so we're moving it as we use it. So we're waiting to see, but we're about 38% spent in encumbered too.
Okay, so when you send them the next note, let them know.
Let them know that Joanne said you're getting cut off.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, I won't do that. No, certainly we'll let them know that they need to. I will. I will get on that. We'll run another report. I'm going to get the budget rolled out, but we will run another report and see where we're at and remind them. And I know that Lisa and Lee have been working to help support me and my team on that. And we're here to help. I told any one of them, I mean, we had a new principal recently hired who reached out and did ask the questions, and I started seeing her things rolling in. She had questions. Just reach out and ask. We're here to help. I always offer my staff, maybe they don't like me for that, but I always offer my staff to help, and they do. I have a good team, so I'm very fortunate.
Okay, well, Ms. Manola, the next item is your item. Okay. Motion to table. Motion. I don't think we can, it's a discussion item. We just don't discuss it. So you're not discussing it. Okay. We'll move on to IT audit. Mr. Charbonneau.
We had voted this committee a couple of months back to go out for an RFP for an IT audit, and I was just looking for a status update. I know we had asked that our legal counsel work with Melissa and Hirsch.
We're currently working on the RFP. I think that there was some clarification that there's two components to the RFP that Mr. Charbonneau, I'm not sure if that was the discussion you had with Mr. Conley or not, but yeah, clarification. He's working on it actively. He's already been in communication with Mr. Hirsch and Mr. Pine as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay. Okay, our next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items are our typical discussion items. So if anyone has any questions on them, they can ask now. Ms. Bonello.
So on the expense report, there's an item for, actually, I don't have to ask that because Melissa did answer it. So never mind.
You withdraw your question? Okay. Okay, table it. Okay, then we'll move on to superintendent's update. Dr. McWilliams.
Yes, all right. I would like to take this opportunity to speak to some of the concerns that were raised earlier during the meeting. And I want to assure this committee, our families, our staff, our students, that school safety is of utmost importance to me and to our entire district. I hear what was presented tonight as a concern, and I want to state that there was a few inaccuracies that I think is really important to mention. First of all, when there's a weapon brought into a school, there's a protocol and a procedure that is followed by our office. The principal contacts the school. We address it right away. In the cases that were raised tonight, those students were arrested. The school committee does know that because you received that clarification, and also those students were suspended. So it's really disheartening to hear someone speak in public session that the superintendent overrode principal and didn't allow suspension. That's just inaccurate. I do apologize for that misunderstanding and miscommunication. I don't know where that came from. But I want to assure this committee that I am very solidly standing on school safety, and it is important. And I want our students to feel comfortable in our schools and feel safe. I want our families to know that they're sending their students to school that are safe. And I want our staff to feel safe. And I fortunately was able to have a meeting with the PTA union leadership. I did not know that they were going to be speaking in participation tonight, but we did have a meeting. We did talk about school safety. So some of the ideas that were brought forth are things that are in the works. I do want to make that clear that school safety is important, and the inaccuracy of students not being suspended or the superintendent overriding a principal didn't happen. Thank you, and happy holidays.
School committee member updates, Ms. Manolo.
I guess I've already said a lot, so I'll be brief. I did go to Curtis today. They had their holiday. And it did bring me back to when I was in Curtis, and I did it too. But it was their holiday songs, and my granddaughter's in it. So I went over today, and it was wonderful, and it was great to see the kids, all five grades, totally inclusive. Everybody was included, and it was just wonderful. It was. So gave me a happy heart. So I thought I'd share that. Thank you.
Mr. Charbonneau.
I'm sad that that Mr. Knight left, because I wanted to publicly thank if he gives you his word on something, you can take it to the bank. And that's not all that frequent these days. So I will miss serving with him. I will miss what he brought to this committee, and I wanted to wish him well publicly. So that's it. And happy holidays, everybody else.
Ms. Grant.
I just want to wish everyone a nice holiday. I won't be here at Monday's meeting, so I wish you guys a nice holiday. Happy New Year.
Mr. Larrabee.
I would like to thank the Pawtucket voters for allowing me to serve 2 terms in office as a school committee member. I definitely, growing up, I would never imagine to be in this position, and I truly love this city, and I will continue to be active in supporting and advocating for youth. And I look forward to continuing to work with you all here in the district, and I'm someone who's here as a resource. I'm always available and always willing to support or help out anything that's going on. If it's for the best of our community, if it's what's best for our students, then I'm all for it. I also want to thank the school committee members. I really learned a lot from serving on this committee with you all, and everyone from the superintendent to the assistant superintendents, Miss Liz, to the faculty of all of our schools. Just thank you for embracing me and for allowing me to grow throughout this process. Just once again, I will forever be someone who's willing to do anything that it takes to help make sure that Pawtucket is moving in the right direction. And I look forward to seeing all the great things that continue to happen in this city.
Mr. Moreno.
Thank you, everyone. As you explained, it's an honor. Serving with all of you as I embrace a new challenge. I just have to express the appreciation I have for everyone who was in the audience, for everyone in central office, Cheryl, all the 700 teachers, and I won't a stranger to all of you. It was an honor serving with you as we y'all show teamwork. We had slight arguments every so often. Was always interesting. Man, if all of you, even as y'all argued, we always fought for what we thought was right, and what it is that brought us all here is it is improve our city. I will work with you all through a separate seat. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. So we're all saying our goodbyes, but we do have a special meeting on Monday. I also will end. I want to thank all the teachers who came to the meeting tonight to share their concerns. I taught in a high school that was a very unsafe place to teach. There were frequent weapons, there were frequent fights. It was not conducive to learning or to my own personal safety. And I will do everything to ensure that our teachers do not have to experience the same thing. My daughter is going to our high schools next year. I will work to make sure that my daughter is in one of our middle schools that was referenced just today. And obviously I want her to be safe, and I want all of our students in Pawtucket to feel that same safety. And so I will be looking to see what this committee can do to address that as well. So I'm not going anywhere, but as I've told the members of this committee already, I will not be seeking the chair position in the new year. Personal and professional responsibilities will just make it so that I really can't dedicate the time that is needed for this role. So as we welcome in a new family, we'll also have a new person sitting in the center, and I will look to support the person who I think can best lead this committee, and I'll be along for the ride with that. So with that, I wish you all a happy holidays, although I will see you all on Monday for probably a pretty short special meeting for some business that needs to be concluded by the end of the year. That's it.
Motion to adjourn.
The motion to adjourn by Ms. Bonello is seconded by Ms. Grant. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
Meeting. Yeah, it's 10 o'clock. So can you be on that?